Welcome into episode 187. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Nick Saban just retired, like right
Yep.
before we started recording the podcast, which is kind of funny because that would have been live on the podcast if we would have started at our normal time.
We
But
literally are running a
work
little late today and
work
yeah.
got in the way, and so that robbed everyone of a live reaction on the podcast. But that's kind of crazy.
By the way, if you're wondering
Um,
whose work got in the way, it was both of ours at the same time. So it
yeah.
was actually sort of convenient, but what can you do?
Yeah. But no, that's crazy news. But how are you, Christian?
I'm good. I'm a little back to being stressed with this whole Nick Saban thing because obviously I'm not a lunatic. I'm not like, oh, what if Gus Malzahn leaves for Alabama? But this is going to start a ripple effect because Alabama will hire someone and then that team will hire someone. And so I'm just kind of like going through the motions of realizing we have to do a coaching carousel again. But other than that, I'm doing swell, having a good time.
Is it dumb that I'm not worried about it at all? Like, I just don't think any of the
I don't
teams that
know.
might lose a coach, like, I don't think it's gonna
But you're thinking one
impact
level
UCF at
high.
all.
Like, say that Alabama goes and hires like Oregon's coach, which was what Brett McMurphy said might be a thing, or they go and hire Norvell out of FSU. Then it's like Oregon will hire someone or FSU, and then it's just like you sort of move down
Yeah.
the tiers and jobs start opening. So I don't know. It's just I really like where when you see I know there's a lot of you who are listening to this and you're like, God, I would love for Gus Malzahn to leave and for UCF have to start over in the middle of freaking January whenever and lose all their commitments and whatever. But I would prefer to not do that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I have my issues with Gus and with the coaching staff, I think, but I would also prefer not to start over right now,
There is not a worse
considering.
time. Like UCF had to do this when Danny White left, and then 2 weeks later was like, Josh, come on and join us. And that was already hard, and that was without the transfer portal. When now like that would happen, and UCF's roster would dissolve. So it would not be fun. So let's just not even speak of that. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. Nothing to worry about.
Let's get into our 5-star review question. So here's what we are gonna do today. It's gonna be a lot of questions being answered. So we're doing a 5-star review question because a lot of you actually replied to this tweet on the Pegasus Podcast account. So we're gonna do a 5-star review question, and then we have canceled tweet of the week for this week, and I have also made the executive decision to cancel game of the week until like one of the basketball teams proves that they deserve to be a game of the week, or until softball starts in a month. We don't know. Could be whichever happens first.
It's gonna be softball.
So we'll get to by the end, instead of those two segments, we're going to answer 3 more of the questions that we got under that tweet. So
Which I should
we'll
stop
get to
doing
all
this
those.
because I posted the tweet and was like, I need one single question for the podcast. And you guys keep doing this annoying thing where you all leave questions I want to answer. So we have a bunch of them. So
We need one singular question for the podcast, and everyone's just like, "Oh wait, so it's a mailbag?" And it's like, I don't blame you all for sending in questions because we wanted questions,
it's
but
not even that's
we
a
have to pick
mailbag.
one.
I wasn't
Yeah.
like, hey, everyone coordinate, come up with one question together, we'll answer. I just put the tweet up and asked for questions,
Yeah.
and a lot of people had questions. So we'll do
It's
what we
funny, like
can. But
we're still not used to having this many people like asking, like wanting to know our
well,
thoughts
we
on
never
these different
really
questions.
had because the we have the Twitter account now, the Pegasus Podcast
Yeah.
Twitter, so it's easy to just have that all in one place. When before, I guess it was dumb that we got almost 3 years into this without having a dedicated social media channel
Yeah,
for
who
the podcast.
cares?
But whatever, we're here now. That's what matters. So fun times.
Yeah. So let's get to this 5-star review question. It comes from William Stevenson. It says, if you could design the perfect 12-team football conference for UCF, who would be in this conference? So I'm gonna let you answer first and then explain that. You already sent me your answer, and I was like, I don't want to change anything about that. And what I ended up doing was changing 2 teams. So let's go with yours first.
Yeah, I'm pulling up mine. Sorry. I have to say that who left that question? William.
William Stevenson.
Shout out to William because he left that question. I think I replied to you with my list maybe 2 minutes after he posted it because I just got that question.
Yeah.
It's like I want to do this. So I want to clarify with my thing here that I still can't find this list. Here we go. That I took into account everything when crafting this new conference that I literally spent 4 minutes on creating. And this isn't just like, oh, it would be fun for UCF to play these teams. I thought about everything. I thought about what kind of TV deal would they get with this league. I ignored like conference boundaries. Like I'm picking whatever teams I want, but
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted, so my league in alphabetical order that UCF will be in is Duke, Florida, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Memphis, Miami, North Carolina, South Carolina, UCF, obviously, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest. And A would be great television deal because lots of good brands in there. But we have the Florida teams that UCF gets to play every year. They get Florida State, Miami, and Florida. Those are your big like tentpole games that'll sell the season tickets. We'll have fun for. And then we also have the cannon fodder. You get Virginia, you get South Carolina, you get Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, teams that you can get with Duke. Like so, you have a nice mix of big games that are exciting and also teams you can actually beat. We've got all the major markets. We've got Orlando, Atlanta, Miami, and Memphis. This is a strong basketball league. We got Duke and Virginia in there. We got North Carolina, so that'll up the TV deal. And also make, I still want men's basketball to be terrible no matter what perfect league we're crafting. So that secures that. And almost no travel. These are all Southeast teams. So there you go. That's my magic league that I've come up with for UCF.
That's what I liked about it, was like it's very Southeast focused. And I was like, let me just keep it. And then I removed 2 teams and added 2 teams. So I don't even know if I should do the whole list. I guess I will, but I'll tell you first what I made different. I just didn't include the Virginia teams, and instead I added NC State and Tennessee.
Okay.
Because I thought that would be fun.
I dropped NC State for Wake Forest because I decided NC State's too good, and I wanted a team that UCF could beat more regularly.
I didn't think about this like what can UCF. I didn't fully think about this as what can UCF like presumably do well in, but I did think, because I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to make this geographic, like, well, I included in Georgia Tech, but I was like, I'm not going to pull Georgia because I don't want Georgia in this league. And then same thing with South Carolina. I pulled South Carolina, but I was like, I'm not going to add Clemson, even if Clemson is maybe finished, because Dabo's cooked. But yeah, so I had UCF, Florida State, Miami. So I'm just doing this geographically. And then I had Georgia Tech from Georgia, and then South Carolina, and then Memphis and Tennessee, then North Carolina State, Duke, and Wake Forest. So basically everything you just said, except I just made a couple changes.
I don't know what it says about where UCF belongs that we both primarily chose a bunch of ACC teams, but what can you do? I also
it's a geographic thing.
It is entire, and it's also because I've said before that one of my great frustrations with the Big 12 is it's too good. Is all of these teams are very, very good in comparison to UCF, and there are no easy, like if you're an ACC team, if you're Miami, you get to play a bunch of teams that aren't very good in conference every year. You get to play Georgia Tech, who you probably should have knelt against. And I know it's stupid for me to use them as a team when they just beat UCF in the bowl game, but most years they're not that good. You get to play Syracuse. You get to play Wake Forest and Boston College. There's just a lot, Virginia. There's a lot of teams that are generally not very good in that conference. And in the Big 12, every single team is good most of the time, and it's very frustrating. But the real answer, though, for this question, if we wanted UCF to just be the center of college football, is really just a 12-team league. You take UCF and the 11 best SEC teams, and there you go. There's my league. And rule the world. It's less fun.
Want that?
Well, yeah, I know, because UCF would then. Well, they still wouldn't have money. I forgot. Yeah, that'd be tough. What can you do?
But that was a fun question. I appreciate the question from
I enjoyed that.
William Stevenson.
I hope you all enjoyed listening to our answers.
What's funny is we keep calling these 5-star review questions. They're really not anymore. They're just not questions, because
we basically transitioned into questions. So
yeah, mailbag question of the week. That's a long title for a segment, but let's get into we'll talk transfer portal updates here, and then this is actually also, I forgot to mention this at the top, our 2023 end of season awards show. It sounds like that sounds more like grand than it is. Our awards
very prestigious.
Show, but like
we are going to have trophies mailed out to the winning players.
Didn't you say this last year?
I did. Never do it, but words aren't real. I can just say whatever I want.
Transfer portal updates. So they've added 6 transfers since the last time we spoke. On this podcast. Not since we spoke. That was earlier. But the big thing is that they added linebackers, which, as we've discussed in the podcast, they need many. Haven't had any for a little while. I mean, other than Jason Johnson. Well, like literally they were too deep, and not even really too deep this year, which is insane for a Power 5 program. So they added linebacker Josiah Pierre from Texas Tech, Xavier Carter from UNLV, and Exree Alexander from Idaho. And that's the big one. Alexander, I think, is like, of all of the guys that can play linebacker that they've added, I think he's like the only true linebacker, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talk about him first, because I looked it up, and I think it's Exree Alexander, but I think I'm just going to call him X because that sounds easy. So let's
you can do that. I'm going to stick with Alexander, but you can call him X. This is probably, am I exaggerating to say I think that outside of KJ, this is their biggest portal get of this cycle? Is that fair?
Probably, and I'm trying to be more cautious this year about all this stuff because I've never seen him play personally. So
yes, I have never been to Idaho, so I have not seen him play personally either.
I don't mean I've never seen him on TV either, so I don't mean like I haven't been to see him in person. But
know if Idaho is on TV, so not sure about that either. But yeah, I mean the thing with Alexander is this is the closest I've felt since this entire cycle started to feeling, oh hey, maybe linebacker won't be a train wreck next year. He's a guy that we knew UCF was in on for a while, and someone that I was texting you, I think, every day saying, God, I hope that Alexander commits today. I really hope they can land him, because so the deal with him is that he is a true freshman and he went to Idaho. He was a mid-level 3-star. He did have some Power 5
He was
offers.
like
It was
Arizona State,
Arizona
right?
and
He
Arizona State
initially
both got
committed to
involved.
Arizona State.
Yeah, and then he ended up at
Yeah.
Idaho, which was sort of weird to begin with. And he had an insane true freshman season. He had 74 total tackles. He forced 2 fumbles. He did this all as a true freshman. And then he hopped in the portal and he immediately got a lot of interest. Nebraska offered, Washington offered. His top 3 ended up being UCF, Michigan State, and Cal. And I kind of felt like Cal had the edge because he's from Washington State and he's a West Coast kid. And it's pretty rare to see players enter the portal to portal even farther away from where they're from. Usually they end up closer to home. So I thought that hurt UCF, but he's literally coming across the entire country to come here. And it is huge that they got him for a couple of reasons. One is that I think he's an immediate starter. I think he comes in and I don't know. We never know. But as we talked about last year, the majority of the guys who then we talk about, oh, what we were thinking, it's like former 4-stars and former blue chippers who didn't really play at their last stop. For this guy to have been a true freshman and already having a lot of success, even at the FCS level, that makes you think that that'll translate. And it's also, we don't talk about enough with the portal guys. We're just always about filling needs. Well, they have a need at linebacker. They have a need at right tackle. Getting a guy with 3 years of eligibility left that you hope that maybe we can finally, he's the chosen one where we break the cycle of not having to worry about linebacker every freaking offseason. That's huge. So there's a lot riding on him panning out, but I feel super, super good about him. And I feel my blood pressure lowering about linebacker for the first time in a very long time. So it's not solved. We don't know, but I feel good about him.
Yeah, and that's where like you mentioned, doing all that as a true freshman, I don't care if it was at the FCS level. I don't really care where it is. Like true freshmen don't really have that type of production typically.
Yeah.
They don't. It's just that's and so maybe it was a product of him playing, a below like where his skill level is, and now he's taking that step up. I don't really know. I haven't watched much FCS football. But no, I mean to get him and because of how big of a need it is to assume, I think it's safe to assume, although I think maybe I did this with Ryan Davis last year. I think it's safe to assume that he is one of your starting linebackers in 2024. I almost said 2023. It's weird that we're now in a new year.
Yeah. It's even
but
safer to assume with him because unlike when Ryan Davis came in, there are legitimately no other options. So he is by default your starting linebacker for 2024. I mean,
and the fact that he's had production, like that's what I'm loving about this class so far is that a lot of these guys, and we talked about this when the portal first opened, is that they're going after guys, it seems that, I mean, for the most part, there's some outliers, but have had a lot of production or have had some production and played meaningful snaps at their previous schools. And that feels more like there should be a higher hit rate on those guys than the guys that, oh, they didn't work out at the first school and we'll see if they work out here.
And it's of course never that cut and dry because I think the biggest bust of this class was Corey Gamage, who was a 2-year starter at Marshall and very good. And then we still don't know what happened there. DeCorian Patterson was another guy who was really good. And I wouldn't call him a bust. He worked his way into the lineup as the season went along, but he wasn't as impactful as we sort of thought he would be. But there's no position and no area of talent in the portal that's a 100% sure thing. But now that we have a sample size of a few years, college football wide, when you look at the guys who pan out the most, it's either high-level starters who are leaving for a bag, like we're talking about Dylan Gabriel, guys like that who are already stars at very good schools. And it's FCS guys. The FCS guys who are putting up crazy numbers, they tend to hit really well. And UCF's had success with that in the past with guys like Jason Johnson, guys like Bryson Armstrong. I know that, well, I was going to say to Jordan Mass, but he wasn't FCS. He came from Texas Tech, I think, before he got hurt. But so when you look at some of the guys that UCF's bringing in, why are you looking confused when I said that?
Because I feel like he came from like Texas State or something.
Okay, well, Texas. What did I say?
Texas Tech.
I meant Texas State.
Okay.
Texas State is where he came from. I misspoke. Sorry. I was thinking Texas State, and then I said the school that's name is more in my head, I guess. But so from that perspective, that makes me excited about Alexander and just about a lot of the guys in this class. I mean, like Dalen Dotson is another one that comes to mind. They're bringing in just really experienced players, which feels like the recipe for success versus this guy used to be a 4-star, so we like him.
Yeah, and so kind of the other thing where you probably pencil him in as a starter, and then we'll kind of see how the other starting linebacker plays out because they've got a lot of these guys who I think they're probably gonna, I don't want to say convert because they played linebacker before, but have been more of like hybrid players. We talked about Deshaun Pace last week, and he was at Cincinnati as like a hybrid linebacker safety.
And his graphic, UCF declared they were bringing him in as a safety, so not linebacker room.
And so I think he'll probably play that hybrid role in this defense,
presumably.
Whatever that, I don't know what they call it. And then Josiah Pierre, I think maybe that's what they call it at Cincinnati.
Star, they have Buck.
Knight.
I think Knight's gone. Right? I think they got rid of Knight when Addison came in. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's weird. Just use real names for positions, guys. Like, come on.
Right. The ones that have been used for many years. Josiah Pierre has kind of played defensive end and linebacker, and same with Xavier Carter. So, I mean, when you look at their body types, I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but like I think can't remember which one of them is a little smaller. But they've played linebacker in the past. That's what I
Right.
think is important to remember. And until they got Alexander, I was kind of like telling you, I was like, can they really just not get like a true linebacker? Or are they just going to have to
It was like
hope
they were
that one of these
intentionally
guys?
avoiding it.
Yeah, I was like, I hope that one of these guys will hit. But and it's still kind of the case, but they have at least have one in Alexander, and then they have another. Like you go to Josiah Pierre's Texas Tech profile, like he's listed as a linebacker. He's 6'2", 240, which is not really you're not going to play him out on the edge too much. But yeah, I mean, I think these guys again have played meaningful snaps at the previous schools and filling a huge need. And we talked about this on the podcast. It was like I said, just go out and get as many linebackers as you can. I don't really
Yeah.
care. Just give yourself a chance to hit on a key starter and then one that's like at least good enough. And hopefully they've done that. I mean, we won't know until we know, but
we're at the
they've
point where
gone
now
out and gotten a lot of guys.
you look at that room and they have Josiah Pierre, they have Xavier Carter, they have Exree Alexander. Is that how he determined
I
it
think
said?
so, yeah.
And then you have Andrew Harris and you have Troy Ford. Now it's a room again. It's like,
Yeah.
I think they can probably mold that into something good. I will say that just to cold take myself so I can get this out here and we can circle back in a year and be like, Christian is an idiot and you need to stop listening to him. The one I'm absolutely least high on is Xavier Carter. Xavier Carter feels like the exact type of player that they were taking too much in past portal classes and isn't going to work out. He was a former blue chipper at LSU. Then he transferred to UNLV and didn't really do much at UNLV and was not
Yeah.
a major contributor. And now he's at UCF. It reminded me of Isaiah Paul last year, like just someone who it feels like we're just bringing him in to have depth. I don't buy that one panning out, but I feel really good about Alexander. Josiah Pierre, you never know. I will settle for one good linebacker at this point. Like I'm ready to settle.
The thing is,
I will be
like,
okay with that.
you give yourself a chance to have a good enough hit rates where like you have the linebackers you need. If they whiff on all of them, then that's when you start to talk about like, all right, I know portal recruiting is difficult, but then you start to have the conversations about can they identify talent or not?
It's tough though, because when there's
Because
a guy like Alexander where he hops in the portal and Michigan State and Washington and Nebraska are all interested, that implies they see something.
yeah,
Like it's not like UCF's just going out on a limb and finding some diamond in the rough and saying we're going to develop him or whatever. Right? I mean, this is a guy that was sought after, and most of the guys they've gone after have been like that, where UCF's actually winning battles against other pretty good programs. So that hopefully helps. But like you said, it's about hit rate between Josiah Pierre and Exree Alexander and Xavier and Andrew Harris and Troy Ford. You just
Deshaun
basically
Pace, if whatever, if you want to
Deshaun
include him.
Pace if it gets that desperate, and they might not even be done. They might keep adding. We'll see what happens, but you just need to find two that can do the job, and that's pretty much it. So
Yeah,
and then you pray for
and
no
then
injuries.
yeah, and then the other, so they added three more that weren't linebackers this past week. One was a defensive back. I think he's primarily a corner, right? Is Antoine Jackson from ECU.
Yeah, he's a corner.
Yeah, and then there's Wes Dorsey, an offensive tackle out of Western Kentucky, I believe a right tackle.
Yep.
And then Goldie Lawrence, a wide receiver from FSU, who was a big target of UCF's, was it last year, 2022 cycle?
Class of 2023.
Or 2023 cycle. So yeah, I mean, I think adds at important positions of need. And in the Goldie Lawrence one, we'll see how it works out, but that's a bigger position of need now because Javon Baker, we alluded to it last week, and now he finally announced it for sure. He's not coming back. He's going into the NFL draft. So,
woohoo!
I mean, I think he's an NFL player, and I'm best wishes to him. I know there's been a weird bit of reaction to that, but UCF fans are weird.
It's a weird situation. I mean, it's not something I'm going to be bitter about for two reasons. One is because I am never, ever in a billion years going to fault a player going to the NFL when they're actually going to get drafted. I'll fault it when it's Dredrick Snelson because that made no sense. But
yeah,
Javon should get drafted. And the other reason I'm not going to fault it is because UCF had 0 players drafted last year. And I'd like that to not happen again this year and not have April whatever be an embarrassing sad day. So if Javon and Tremont Morris Brash want to go get drafted so I can talk about that on Twitter, that'd be swell. So I'm okay with it, even though I'm sad. And now they have Goldie Lawrence, so who cares? They're set.
Yeah. I didn't look too much into Lawrence. He didn't really play much, did he?
No, he
didn't.
He, right? I don't know if he did not play much. Listen, he's a Seminole kid. It's good to maintain that relationship. This is also, you just don't know. Wide receivers are iffy, but if he does pan out, great. And I think this is a situation, which is why it's good to never burn your relationships with the high school kids when they go elsewhere. It's why UCF recruits the way they do for moments like this, because they say we might miss out on him the first time, but we won't the second time. And maybe he pans out, maybe he doesn't, but it was a nice ad either way. Antoine Jackson is a really interesting one, the corner they added, because so he was a 4-star coming out of high school. he signed with Miami and then was released from the NLI. I don't know if it's public what happened there. I couldn't find any like at least public information on what the deal was or why whether he asked out of it or whatever happened there. Landed at East Carolina, was like pretty solid for a true freshman, and now he's at UCF. So that's another, which again, same thing as Alexander, multiple years of eligibility remaining. We love that. So he's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to get to about these guys? Because I mean, I guess we could talk about Dorsey for a second. I mean, I don't know too much other than he was a starter at Western Kentucky and, fills a need on the offensive line. We talked last week about them probably needing to go out and get a tackle.
Yeah.
And they went out and got one. So
we actually had a really weird podcast last week because we sort of like on our own discovered things they needed through talking. Like we were like, oh, they might need like a corner. Then we're looking at the O-line and we're like, I guess they need a tackle. And I guess Gus Malzahn was listening and was like, oh, dang, they're right. Let's
like they've identified our needs. Let's go fill them.
So I don't know anything about Wes Dorsey. I couldn't even find a public offer list of who was interested in him when he got in the portal. So I have no idea. But best case scenario, he's your final starter on the O-line. He is a large man.
He's like 6'7" or something like that. So yeah.
Maybe Dawkins can use him if he doesn't start for football.
Dawkins could use anyone at this point. Let's get into our end of year awards, which I feel like this. I don't know if this is later than we normally do them, but like you and I were like, what should we do for the podcast this week? And then I realized that we hadn't done our award show, and I was like,
I looked it up. It's the exact same week we did it last year.
Is it really?
Yes. So we could have just played it off, but I'm glad you announced on the podcast that we just didn't have a topic and decided to do our awards because we forgot.
I feel like our transparency is endearing.
So for those who are new to the podcast, these are very prestigious awards. They're great. And
you had more to say after that. I was like,
they're very prestigious.
I thought you were going to go into a. They are.
I know the players are eagerly awaiting their trophies that we will definitely be sending out.
Here's another peek behind the curtain of how unprepared I am. I meant to go back and listen to last year so I could mention last year's winners when we did like the different categories, and I didn't do that. I remember like who I had for 2 of them, but I don't remember other than that. So
I have mine.
Do you? I don't have mine. I looked it up and I went back to the actual podcast to listen to some of it, and then I was like, all right, I'll do that. I'll do that before we record, and then I never did.
You talk for like 10 seconds. I can pull up mine.
Okay, I'll talk for 10 seconds. Well, so I'll just go through the list of awards, and we have some new ones this year. We have Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, which is usually transfer, and then Freshman of the Year as we separate those. And then Uniform of the Year, and a new one this year, UCF Fan Debate of the Year, or if you want to call it whatever, these weird things that people would kind of, pick at each other about week in and week out of the season. There were a lot of them, so a lot of good candidates there.
I feel like we're going to pick the same one, but we'll see.
I don't know.
So postseason podcast award winners from last year for me anyway was my Offensive Player of the Year was Isaiah Bowser.
Mine was RJ Harvey.
Yep. Defensive Player of the Year was Jason Johnson for me.
I had Tremon Morris-Brash, I believe.
Breakout Player of the Year was RJ Harvey.
I might have put Harvey for that one too. I don't remember.
Newcomer of the Year was Javon Baker.
Sounds about right.
Moment of the Year was RJ Harvey's moonwalk touchdown into the end zone against Cincinnati.
Oh, did we do a Moment of the Year this year?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I don't have one. Oh, I have one. I have one in my head. I have one in my head. I never wrote it down.
And my uniform of the year was the Louisville combo, where they wore the black helmets with the gold helmets, with the black jerseys and the black pants with the reverse stack UCF decal.
I don't remember what mine would have been. It might have been was it night mode? Probably
I just remember feeling like yours was dumb. I don't remember what it was.
Well, you're probably going to feel the same way this year because you're very high and mighty about your uniform opinions.
I'm really not. Why does everyone say that? How am I high and mighty about my uniform opinions? People will tell me they disagree with me, and I'm like, fair.
Because you're very opinionated of everything, so people just assume that. All right, let's get into Offensive Player of the Year. Do you want to go first, and then we'll kind of...
I'll go first.
I don't know. Okay, that's cool. Go first.
RJ Harvey.
Yeah, easy.
Right? I started overthinking it because when we were talking about what award categories we're going to do, I texted you and said for the first year we've done these Offensive Player of the Year was easy. And then I paused and was like, they had one first teamer on offense, and it wasn't RJ Harvey, so was this easy? And I thought, it has to be RJ. So yeah, I mean... He was the most consistently great player on offense. He had the best running back season for UCF since Kevin Smith. Over 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6.3 yards per carry. Let's not overcomplicate it. He was far and away the best player on offense this year.
Yeah, no, he had 1,416 rushing yards.
Pretty good. It's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. 16 touchdowns, then through the area, 238 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Like you could have made a case for Javon Baker, but I think when you look at this offense and the success it had, a lot more of it came from the run game. So it's, I mean, I don't know how you how you don't pick RJ Harvey. I still
I hope this
the
was not a
snub on
surprise
the
to anyone. I think
yeah,
this feels like the obvious pick.
but that's the annoying thing is that he was snubbed for all Big 12. Like it's just
Yeah, UCF's
that
best
kind of
player on
season.
offense was not listed anywhere in the Big 12 all team rankings. While Javon Baker got first team, which Javon Baker deserved first team. I
Yeah,
understand that running back was very deep for the Big 12, but still just crazy.
yeah, it's frustrating. Well, we did not spend very much time on that. I guess we didn't really have to.
Because usually, like, I don't know, like, honestly, this is the third Pegasus Podcast Postseason Awards. And the first one was 2021, where the whole team was hurt and we didn't
Yeah.
know what to do. And then the next one was 2022, where the offense was just weird and not great for a lot of the year. And it couldn't be Plumlee because did not have a good year. So it's been tough. I think it's cool that we're 3 years into this and at no point has a quarterback been the clear pick, I think is interesting.
Yeah. I think last year we spent more time on this because there was like you picked Bowser, I picked Harvey, and my
Yeah.
whole like argument was like Harvey did more with what he was given because he had like almost the same amount of yards as Bowser did on like a lot fewer carries. But no,
Yeah.
it was a clear cut one this year. I had a little more.
My argument was that they called on Bowser to throw a critical fourth down pass. So
I had more trouble with defensive player of the year. So let's go to defensive player of the year.
am I going
Am
first
I
every
doing it
time?
this?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean I feel like you should.
Okay. My defensive player of the year was Tremont Morris Brash.
Okay. See, I still don't know mine, but go with let's hear yours.
Okay. I went with Tremont Morris Brash because I felt like he was probably the biggest game changer they had on defense this year.
Yeah.
He had 20 and a half TFLs, 8.5 sacks. He was 24th in the country in sacks, which I didn't realize. And he was all Big 12 first team. There was no way in hell I was going to pick a linebacker, obviously. And I don't know. There was
Yeah.
it felt like I'm actually curious who you had a hard time with because I genuinely felt like there wasn't anyone else that I felt like stood out enough for it.
And I might have a hard time making this case, but I picked Lee Hunter just because I
Okay.
thought he was that like for his position, like he's not going to have the stats
Yeah.
like an outside guy will, but I thought for his position he was pretty like fairly dominant,
I'm not
and
going to
I'm
fight
just
you on
very
that because I
excited.
feel like DTs are another one of those positions where you often just don't notice their impact. You'll notice it if they're bad, but you're not going to
What's
like it's hard. Like the average college football fan in the third quarter isn't like, wow, yeah, Lee Hunter's having a great game, you know?
what's surprising to me is he was third on the team in tackles, and I feel like you don't really get that a
Really?
lot from
Yeah.
yeah. You don't get that a lot from your defensive tackles, and that was the thing is like a lot of the time I said this all year was if the opposing team's running back got through the line of scrimmage, it was going to be a 20-yard gain. And a lot of the times that didn't happen, it was Lee Hunter. I mean, it was John Walker too and Ricky Barber, but Lee Hunter I thought was the guy where I feel like every week there was a moment where I was like Lee Hunter just swallowed up another human being.
Yeah.
And the get ready to learn Lee Hunter buddy meme
What's
also may
his
have
Twitter handle?
what
The Fridge? Is that what it is?
oh something
Yeah.
yeah something like that.
I mean, I agree with you
Uh,
because it's the college football play that you remember the least. It's the one where the opposing team's running back gets the ball and then runs into a wall 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. Like no one
yeah,
remembers that play, but it's
yeah.
important. So I'm not going to fight you on that one.
The other
I'm
weird
okay with that
thing
pick.
is, yeah, I don't think ESPN really does like tackles for loss. I want to know how many tackles for loss he had because
I
I
can pull it up.
didn't. Could you? Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be
Sports
good
Reference does
because
TFLs.
he had 69 tackles for it was third on the team. He had 3 sacks. And then I almost pivoted to Tremont Morris Brash at the last minute, but I figured if you were going to pick Tremont Morris Brash, I would just stick with my original one and give it what did I
Lee
not have
Hunter
it?
had 11 TFLs.
That is very good.
That's pretty good. It's
Yeah,
pretty solid.
I feel even better about my pick. So I
11
wish I would have
tackles for
looked that up
loss and three
myself.
sacks. That's yeah. I'm with you. Okay, never mind. Tremont Morris Brash, I'm rescinding my
No, but
award.
I mean
No.
Tremont deserves it too. So
He
and I
absolutely does.
also picked Tremont last year, so I was
Yeah.
like, let me be different. And
I'm making up for picking a
also
linebacker last year.
Lee Hunter being back is, I mean, he was not gonna not be back, but just I don't know. I'm excited the fact he had such a good season and he has more to come.
Lee Hunter, John Walker, and Ricky Barber are all back. Like I dare a team to run up the
Derek
middle against
LeBlanc,
UCF. Like Derek LeBlanc exists and is on the
yeah.
roster. We keep forgetting about him. Damn it, I just did it again. Yeah, I D line's gonna be fun next year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
All right, let's do breakout player of the year.
you go first.
Okay, Malachi Lawrence.
That's a good one. I'm not gonna argue with that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay. I thought that one was fair. I didn't really know
You
that
thought it was
many other.
obvious. Okay.
I thought it was, but I don't know who. Like, it depends on. I
Should
don't
I
know.
just
We'll get
say
to yours,
mine
but
and then we'll talk
so
about each?
for a second, I'll just talk
Okay,
about
go ahead.
Malachi Lawrence. If you didn't pick him, so 7.5 sacks, second on the team. I mean, by the end of the year, he had kind of supplanted Josh Seliscar as a starter. Like he was getting more snaps and a higher snap share because he earned it. And he was kind of a guy that like going into the year, I didn't really expect like, oh, like maybe he'll be in the rotation. He was just one of the names to me that was like, oh yeah, they also have this guy. And then he turns out to be, to have the kind of season that he had. And I think another guy who probably is just scratching the surface and could be really good for them next year, a huge key player for the defense. All right, let's hear yours.
So this is one of those. Well, let me talk about Malachi Lawrence for a second. We'll keep the suspense going of what my breakout player was.
Yeah.
It was John Rice Plumlee. I love the leap he took. Whatever. But the thing about Malachi Lawrence too is that we didn't really talk about it a ton when Josh Seliskar entered the portal because it was a lot of, oh no, UCF lost a starter. Seliskar, his role was being taken away by Malachi Lawrence, which is sort of an insane thing to say given how long Seliskar has been good here.
Seliskar was a 4-year starter.
Yeah.
And eventually Malachi Lawrence was like, nah, that's my spot. And he's also
which is just crazy. I mean, you were watching it. How often does a team captain who's in his 4th year at the team see his role start to dissipate as the season goes on? Like then
transfer and everyone's kind of like, it's like we'll miss him, but they've got Malachi Lawrence. They've got this other guy that no one really knew much about, but like 12 months ago.
Well, as for the fan base, get ready to learn Malachi Lawrence, buddy. I guess that's the that's the deal.
Exactly.
All right. We ready for my mystery one? Damari Henderson.
Yes. Oh, okay, I like that.
45 total tackles, 3 picks, 3 fumble recoveries. He was the 4th ever UCF player to be named Walter Camp National Player of the Week. And he's one of those guys where, again, he wasn't someone we didn't know about just because he was a highly rated recruit that we were excited for, but he went from, oh, cool, he got on the field in the Military Bowl to one of the most single dominant defensive performances by a UCF player ever. And I know that he was a little up and down as the season went along, but he is one of those guys we're going into next year I'm really excited they have. And so he was my pick for.
No, I like it because I'm a very big fan of his. And yeah, I mean, I think like his name did pop up as I was looking through the roster and kind of thinking like, all right, who really kind of not came out of nowhere, but like who was a breakout player this year.
Right.
I think, like you said, he had some ups and downs. And I thought he was a little boom or bust sometimes, which is probably why I didn't immediately think like Damari Henderson, but that's a good pick. That's actually,
I like yours too.
Yeah.
This is weird. Usually we argue, and instead we're just all of our picks. We're like, oh, well done. That's going to change with a newcomer of the year, but that's fine.
Is it now?
Yes.
Newcomer of the year.
You go first. You're up.
Marcellus Marshall.
Oh, I also did Marcellus Marshall. Okay, never mind.
I mean, I looked at the list because we have freshman of the year too. So like I looked at the transfers. And I was like, who else could it be?
You don't realize how bad this transfer class was until you have to pick the best one. Because my God, it's bad. I almost picked Gage King, and I'm not even joking.
I almost did too. And then I thought, wait, let me look at the offensive line. Yeah, and then I realized because I mean, I thought Amari Kite by the end of the year ended up playing a lot more and becoming more of the player we thought he'd be when he signed. But Marcellus Marshall was in there. He played the 3rd most snaps of any offensive lineman. He played 789 snaps, and he was versatile, which I always love in an offensive line. Herb Hand loves it too.
Yeah.
He played both guard spots and right tackle, and he's back next year. I don't know. That's why I'm looking down this list and I'm like, all these players that I'm picking are back next year. This is great.
Can we just take one more moment to think about what you just said? Marcellus Marshall came in as a transfer to UCF, and Herb Hand said, great, play 3 positions in season. And he did it. And he did it really well.
Yeah. All the 12 different iterations of the offensive line we're going to put out there, you might play in 3 different spots. He's like, all right, cool, I got it.
Marcellus Marshall's New Year's resolution was probably like go more than 4 games in a row at the same position in 2024. But it sucks because he's so good at it that it became clear that every time they had to configure, he was the chess piece they just kind of could put to the side of the board and figure everyone else out and just slot him where you need to go, and he would make it work. So he's UCF, a super valuable player.
I think even before Herb Hand, UCF has loved guys like that. Well, they do. They just, I mean, I guess everyone would, but like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of offensive line coaches or just teams in general are going to say, let's pick our 5 starting like offensive linemen. Like we're going to set it. And then UCF was like, what if we just did a bunch of them and just figured it out? And most of the different combinations were good. And I think
a few years ago, was it Cole Schneider who had to unexpectedly just become the center for a little bit?
I think so.
And it went off like without a hitch. Like it was barely even worth mentioning. It went so well.
Yeah. It's like they have one of those guys I think every year. I think they had multiple guys like that. I mean, obviously Lokahi was another one who had to play center at some points this year and did a good job. So, but yeah, I thought like Marcellus Marshall just had the edge over Amari Kite and Gage King, which the case for Gage King was like he came in, you didn't notice him. Good.
That was seriously the point I was going to make. And I went through the exact same thing you did where I looked at the list and there was no one. And I was like, I think I'm picking Gage King. And then the last second, I was like, all right, well, the O-lineman. And then I settled on Marshall. But I mean, seriously, we didn't have to say his name once this entire year. And It's one of those things that you don't ever want to think about, but UCF's now years into just never even having to worry about long snapper. And there are teams that cannot
Yeah.
say that. So that's a big deal.
It's funny because like that's what you want to say about a long snapper. A lot of cases, that's what you say about offensive linemen too. It's like
Yeah.
if you don't say their name, it's probably a good thing. And I think
When does an offensive lineman ever come up like while watching a game that's not something bad? It just doesn't happen.
the only thing you can think of is like if there's a big play and a big block, like a big pancake block, like sprung the play. Like that's all I
Sure,
can
but
think of.
yeah.
And like if they do and if like the announcer goes back and points out like, oh, look at the pass protection here, like that's really like you have to dial in on it, and
But
it's
that's
not
why
in
it's
your
kind of a
face.
thankless job because it is sort of unfortunate that it's like you play a position where the only time the fan base will ever appreciate you is if the color commentator has the wherewithal to point out after a play that you did something.
Yeah,
Like that's
no, I mean
it.
that's
That's your claim.
but that's why like I think that's why I love the position. I think that's why offensive linemen love the position in general. Like
Yeah.
it's just they take pride in that, and I think that's cool.
O linemen are very
Um,
unique guys. It's also, I think that statistically, it's the lowest rate of transferring of any position in college football is offensive line. It's pretty rare for offensive linemen to move, even if they're not. Look at Paul Rubel. Paul Rubel's barely gone on the field,
yeah,
and he's just living it up, getting a degree, having
yeah,
living his life in Orlando.
I respect it.
I do too.
Let's do freshman of the year.
Freshman of the year. This one was easy, right?
I think so.
Okay, I picked John Walker.
Okay, I did too. I don't know.
Yeah,
You made me think that you might have picked Randy Pittman, who I think
I liked Randy Pittman a
could have been
lot.
considered.
But
Yeah,
this is that debate we just had. I would be buying into that if I picked Randy Pittman because John Walker, I
yeah.
feel like is one of those guys who it's just you don't necessarily notice while watching a game the impact he has. Where Randy Pittman, it's like, oh, he caught a pass, but there is not. I mean, there is not enough to be said about how John Walker came in as a true freshman and Ricky Barber was hurt for a lot of the season, and John
Yeah.
Walker made you kind of not notice that, which is crazy to think about.
John Walker had to, yeah, like be a starter as a true freshman. And we talked about it like he was obviously like the prize recruit of last year's class. And we are like, we'll see. They'll bring him along. Like he might play some in the rotation, but then he had to play like starting snaps.
Yeah.
And he was good. He was
At a
really good.
position that
And
requires a lot of physicality, and it's not
yeah,
always easy just come up from high school and say, okay, Power Five conference, go. And he did it.
because yeah, you think like, all right, getting like a year in the weight program, like all this stuff. And like he obviously came in as a big kid in general, but like it's just unbelievable. I mean, he 20 tackles, a half a sack, like a lot of him, like it's different because Lee Hunter, the stats we just put out there is like crazy. But for a lot of times with defensive tackles, like their stats aren't going to be crazy in your face, but that's just because that's the nature of the position. It's kind of like offensive line.
Yeah.
It's like when you're on the interior like that, no one's really gonna like, oh, look at this guy, unless you make a tackle for loss or something like that. So now I'm curious, are you looking up his tackles for loss? Because I
I
don't know
am.
if
Did you
yeah,
notice? I
that's probably
immediately when you
smart.
said that, I wanted to
Yeah.
see, but yeah, I mean, he had. I got excited though because okay, there have been too many damn John Walkers, and I can't find. Hold on, John
um,
Walker UCF.
yeah, I don't know. I think just to talk a little bit while you're looking this up, like Randy Pittman was one I considered, but it was like John Walker was the one who had to step in and be a starting defensive lineman in a Power 5 defense, which I mean wasn't a good defense, but it was a good defensive line. And yeah, you didn't miss Ricky Barber as good as he is. You weren't like, oh man, like they are not faring well without him. Like John Walker was just he was a dude.
Yeah, he
But
was, and it's funny because you said something about that really got me excited because you were saying, and typically for a position like that, it's like, oh, we'll give him a year in the weight program, and I just in my head, I'm like, he was this good, and now he's going to go through the weight, and now he will
yeah,
have gone through the weight program for a year. Like, oh my gosh, that I am here we go. Sorry, there were a lot of John Walkers to scroll through. He had 5 TFLs.
okay. I mean that's for a
Solid.
true freshman.
Solid.
That yeah, no,
For a
I'm very
non-full-time
pleased.
starter, true freshman, I will take 5 TFLs over the course of a season.
Very, very pleased with what we saw from him.
And
It's very
while
exciting.
they didn't win the prestigious award, shout out to both Randy Pittman and Braden Marshall, two other true
Yeah,
freshmen who had really, really solid years and were contributing in a big way at a very young age, which is very exciting. God, everyone we're talking about are guys back. UCF's
yeah.
going undefeated next year, some are saying.
Mm,
Crazy.
no. Um, I don't know because I forgot to write this down, so I don't know where in this list you had moment of the year, but let's do moment of the year now.
Okay. Uh,
I want to hear what you had.
my moment of the year was RJ Harvey's 93-yard touchdown, I believe it was
Dang
against
it, we're
Oklahoma
just
State.
lining up on this too much. Mine was more of like the entire sequence because it was Damari Henderson getting a pick. Was Damari Henderson, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Damari Henderson with an interception at the 8-yard line, and then the very next play, him running for a 92-yard touchdown. And that sequence, like, because they were blowing out Oklahoma State in the first half, but I was still kind of like, I don't know, like, I don't know. And then it's 24-3. Oklahoma State's like driving, and I'm like, all right, they score here, like we're back in a game. Interception, 92-yard touchdown, and it was 31-3. Like at that point, I was like, all right, they're going to beat the number 15 team in the country.
And that's exactly it, is because exactly what you said, because UCF fumbled on offense and now Oklahoma State has the ball. And I didn't believe at any point until that play. And then suddenly I'm in the press box and I'm like, oh, UCF is going to straight up boat race the number 15 team in the country. Like it just sort of clicked. So shout out to RJ Harvey for 2 years in a row having an iconic touchdown being our moment of the year on the podcast. But that was a great play. And just everything about it, like the broadcast is still talking about the pick, and then they come back and they're just talking like, yeah, what a great intercept. Oh, okay, yeah, RJ Harvey's gone. You got in just in time as he's just racing across the field.
Oh, it's incredible. What a player.
I'm so excited he's back next year. I don't think I'd really felt fully how much I wanted him back until he announced he was coming back. I know that was a while ago now, but I mean, he's the biggest star, quote unquote, they've had since DG, probably since Mackenzie Milton, from how much the fan base connects with him. I mean, the fans love him. He's a local guy. I'm so happy he's back next year.
It almost makes you like wonder what that like lost year was when he tore his ACL. Was that in the spring game or was it just in practice? I don't remember.
It wasn't I don't remember either, but that was one of the things that we knew, and I don't remember if we said in the podcast or not, but the expectation in 2021 was he was going to be RB1. And
we've
like everyone knew that. Okay, I wasn't sure if we had it. Like everybody knew that. And then he got hurt, obviously, and you end up with Bowser, who was going to be RB3, because remember, it was going to go, their running back room that year was going to be RJ Harvey, Bentavious Thompson, Isaiah Bowser. Those were the top three guys. And then RJ gets hurt. Bentavious, I don't actually remember what the deal was with that. He was kicked off the team, wasn't he?
Was he? I think he might have been.
Okay, I don't remember what happened. Yeah. I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn there. I don't remember what he said. I don't remember what the deal was.
He left one way or the other.
Yeah, but he left, and then suddenly it was Bowser, who ended up being really solid. But it's like, imagine 2021 if Bowser, as good as he was RB3. It would have been it would have been a little bit of a different year. But
yeah. So for RJ to come back with the 2 years that he's had too, and I felt like 2022 felt like, all right, he's back from his ACL injury. They're kind of easing him into this. They still have Bowser. This year it was like, all right, let's just unleash him. Like toward the end of last year, that was what it was, but this year especially was like, this is our guy, and I loved that.
Yep.
Uniform of the year.
Uniform of the year. To me, it was obvious, and it was and you fans are going to disagree because you believe that something needs to be worn in a win for it to have looked good. But it was what they were against Georgia Tech. It was the gold helmets with the black Pegasus jerseys and the black pants with the white reverse stack UCF decal. We have a video podcast, so I can put up. I don't know if that's coming across well at all. This is as low tech as you can get, but
sort of. The helmet is very bright.
This is not going well at all. Whatever.
It's great for the audio too. Is that while you were showing the pictures, we just
went silent. That was probably stupid. There you go.
There you go. That's the best. That's the best we've seen. Yeah.
It's everything to me, and to me that is the quintessential UCF combo. Like if we're ever so fortunate to see them play in a playoff game and they get to be the home team or wear colors, that's what they need to wear. It's just the UCF look. It's the all black. It's the gold helmet, especially with these new gold helmets, man, that just shine so well and pop so much better than the old ones. And then white's always been a big part of UCF's scheme, and you have the white decals, the white numbers, the Pegasus on the shoulders. It's the best thing they wear. It's the best thing they've ever worn is when they roll out that combo. And Georgia Tech, we got to see the best version of it ever because I never even had a problem with the old gold helmets. I thought they were great. These new gold helmets are insane. It's such a good look. And I know they lost the game, and so you guys hate it, but that's the best thing they wear.
No, I don't disagree. And that one, I didn't pick that one, but that's the one that has been for years like my favorite look of theirs. It's just like the different iterations of it are great.
Which they've worn it pretty sparingly. It's not a very common combo from them.
Yeah, and I don't remember. Honestly, I wish I would have remembered what I picked last year. Did they wear it last year?
Yeah, that was mine last year. They wore the same thing against Louisville.
Okay, I don't remember what I picked last year, but I don't know. I just didn't want to go with that one because I feel like I've talked about that one. I wanted to show some love to the West Virginia combo because I liked the white, black, white with the white face masks. Like the white face mask, you got it right up there. And then the duck decal helmet. Something I never would have thought of, and I don't know if we probably talked about it at the time. Never would have thought that I wanted that. But then for them to have the duck inside the helmet, like inside the UCF decal for homecoming, for Spirit Splash, I just love it. I love how innovative and just everything is. And it's funny because like that's the one I settled on. I had the Gasper Lowell one too, and then I had two other ones that are, I don't know if people call them basic because I feel like, I don't know, maybe people call them basic, but I had two other ones that I was considering just because I liked how just nice they looked, and that was the Villanova combo, the black, white with the the white script knights on the helmet.
Slept on
and
combo.
Then I like the Kansas State one, the black, white, black. Yeah, I like that. And I think it was I originally because I love their blackout look with the Pegasus jersey, but I didn't like, and I don't know why this is a thing. I don't really like when they wear two different decals. It kind
Yeah,
of bothers
that's
me.
an acquired taste. So it's funny. I was fine with it at the time. As we've gotten farther away from it, I've liked it less when I see photos of it. The only one I like, well, I will like it when they do, if it's the stack UCF on one side and the script Knights on the other side. I like that because it looks like the helmets say UCF Knights when you get the shots of the players facing each other. The UCF and the Knighthead, I'm like, yeah, they probably could have picked one. What I want to see, and I'm declaring this as a combo that must happen next year, even though, why not? I'll just declare it. I want to see a blackout with the Pegasus jerseys. I want the white stack UCF decal on the helmet, and I want the white face mask. That would be like the best blackout they've ever done if they
I still want to see like a black helmet, like like the black and white helmets they wear where there's no gold. It's just black and white.
Yep.
Wild Bill's gonna hate this because I said no gold. But black helmet, white decal, and it's the Knighthead, just like all white.
Like a white version of the Knighthead?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I wonder if they'll. Yeah, we've really only seen what we've seen the Knighthead decal, but it's really always just the chrome gold. They haven't really messed with it at all yet. That'd be cool to see. I'd be down for that.
That would be interesting. So yeah. The Ducks, man.
It was a very cool touch. It was a very and it just out of nowhere. It was like, wasn't it like the day before the game? They were like,
I think it was during Spirit Splash or after Spirit Splash. Because I was driving there on Friday, I think it was, or I was driving. I don't remember my plans, but whatever. Yeah, I saw it and I was like, there's no way. Like there's a duck in the helmet. All right, new category. This is the last one. Fan debate of the year. Is that what you'll call it? Fan debate of the year.
Fan debate of the year.
Yeah. You said you think we might go with the same one. I'm curious which one you picked.
So I picked Frankie Valli.
Really?
Listen, man, it turned into something that fans on opposite sides both raised tens of thousands of dollars for what they felt was the right thing with that song. I had to go Frankie Valli.
I came up with this thing and I misinterpreted the award.
Okay.
I picked the dumbest one.
Well, that's fine.
Frankie Valli's.
Can I give you my honorable mention?
Probably the right one because of the money. Yes, let's hear it.
My honorable mention was when everyone got mad that Boise State was going to wear blue uniforms on it.
That was my pick for the dumbest.
Oh, did you pick
debate of the year? Yeah, I picked blue uniforms on blue turf because, I mean, how were UCF ever going to see the human beings in the uniforms? Because they were just going to camouflage and blend in.
That was a really stupid one. So I'm with you. I will accept that as a pick.
I found it earlier. I'm gonna be able to if I found it, if I can find it again. The list. Someone put the list out there, of just like what it was week by week. It was Sam Del Valle. He posted it. It's UCF Twitter Wars. Twitter Civil War 2023 timeline. Yeah, I have it. Week 1 was the rained out tailgates. We might have read this on the podcast already.
We did.
Week 1 was rained out tailgates. Week 2 was the Boise State all blue uniforms. Week 3 was why aren't they getting AP votes, which I don't even really remember.
Oh, I remember that one.
Week 4 was Moral Victory Part 1. I think I was after K-State.
Yep.
Week 5 was Student Section Conundrum. That's a good word. Week 6 was Frankie Valli, and then postseason was Frankie Valli as well. Week 7, Canaveral blue uniforms.
Not the week of the space game, by the way. It was they got dropped and everyone hated them, but then they won the game, so now they're everyone's favorite space uniforms ever. Week
8, Moral Victory Part 2. Week 9, Fire Somebody. Week 10, Storm the Field, Don't, which I remember you had a big part in.
I did.
Week 11, Student Section Part 2, and then Week 12, the whole Kingdom NIL thing where there was a lot going on with the Kingdom. What a year it's been for UCF fans.
Can we predict what's it going to be next year? Like, I want you right now to give me a prediction. What is a stupid debate that will happen next year?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I mean, it's already happened, so that one can't really count. Because then they have, I don't know if it wasn't included in that list, but what was it? Which game was it where it was Baylor? They were supposed to wear a whiteout on the team, and like everyone got so mad that they weren't wearing white. That was like a big thing.
What was that?
Yeah, it was just like I don't remember.
I have to go on this rant really quickly again because there might be some of you listening now who weren't listening then, or maybe you missed the podcast, whatever. There's a significant chunk of the fan base that thinks that the home team can just wear whatever uniforms they want. UCF can't wear white uniforms at home. They need the opposing team's permission to do it. And every time you've ever seen them do it, it's only been a handful of times and the opposing team has given permission. It's rare for teams to give permission. They've denied permission before. UCF has denied permission to other teams before. So I think my favorite example of that is do you remember in 2018 when UCF played at Memphis?
Yes.
Do you remember what they wore?
Yeah, it was all white.
Did you know that was a whiteout game for Memphis and the fans were all instructed to wear white? And Memphis had requested permission from UCF to wear white for the game, and UCF said no. So UCF does it too.
I didn't remember that.
We know that publicly because I forget what the newspaper is in Memphis. They wrote a story on it and tried to call out UCF, and no one cared. It just did not become a thing.
I'm trying to think. I don't know what it would be. I know what one thing already, and it doesn't count for week one because it's not week one yet, but we'll get into that in the news. I don't know if that's even really a debate. Everyone just hates it. I can't pick one. Do you have one?
I have a
It's gonna be something
couple.
related to the Florida game is gonna be the big
Yeah,
dumb one.
I think there will be something about the swamp at night. I think if it's a night game, that's going to become a thing because there's already a Florida account out there that said that KJ Jefferson beating UF didn't count this year because it was a day game. So that could become a thing. I think that there could be something uniform related with the Colorado game. I think if they lose that game,
Yeah.
fans are going to talk about how UCF needs Colorado's level of uniforms. Like if UCF wins the game, they're going to talk about how Colorado's gold uniforms or gold whatever sucks. I don't know. I think
UCF
that's where I'm
fans
at.
UCF fans will complain about the number, like the total of ticket allotment. Sorry, the ticket allotment at UF at the
Yes,
Swamp,
that's a
like
good
their
one.
ticket allotment. They'll be like,
Um,
"Why we should get more tickets?" Which
the student
I
section
mean,
for the Thursday night game against New Hampshire is going to be a debate. I'm certain of that.
yeah. Let's jump into that now. We'll jump into
All right.
football news, unless you have anything else you want to say. But
No.
that was the thing I was alluding to about. It's not really in debate. I think everyone just kind of hates it. UCF's 2024 season opener against New Hampshire has been moved to Thursday, August 29th. I don't know why. It didn't come as a surprise to me when they announced it, but I hadn't already like I'm more surprised that I hadn't figured that was going to happen anyway.
Right.
I kind of was just like, oh
Since
yeah, it's
they
August
literally always
31st.
open on a Thursday. Even though
Especially
last
like
year it was like, I'm glad they're opening on a Thursday so they have extra time to prepare for Boise next week. Now it's, I'm glad they're opening on a Thursday so they have 2 extra days to prepare for Sam Houston State
at home.
at home.
Like
Like
not
they
going
would
all the way across the
like they
country to
would ever
Boise
play
State.
at Sam Houston
No,
State.
I
Like
know,
that
but
would
it's
ever
just like
happen.
the whole thing with Boise State was like they have extra time to prepare for Boise, and it's also that's a long trip out there. And then this time it's just Thursday night home game against Sam Houston,
So
or not Sam,
I'm going to
against New
say,
Hampshire. Yeah.
because I was a little sassy on Twitter about this, and I was told that there are recruiting implications to this, and that Miami and Florida play on that Saturday, and that will be a big recruit game, and UCF would like to also get those recruits to their game, so that it would be easier to put that game earlier. So there's
Oh,
always a
Miami
reason
and Florida
behind
play
things.
each other that Saturday.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So all the
Yeah,
big
that makes sense.
Florida state, all the state recruits will be at that game. So
But
UCF
they
can get them
usually
on
have
campus too.
valid reasons to do it. It just sucks for the fans.
It really does. And it's one of those things where I feel like we do occasionally like lose sight a little bit of why we do this. Like, is there a real case to be made that because a recruit came to the Thursday night game against New Hampshire, they're more likely to commit than if they came to the Sam Houston game a week later? I don't know.
I don't know.
This is supposed to be for the fans, and it really it like, and I understand like for some fans it's fine. It doesn't really affect me. I'll be there no matter what. But I know there are a lot of people who just can't really swing a weeknight game. People like you, for example, who live in a different city.
We'll see if I make it there.
So yeah,
I've already thought I don't know if that's
yeah,
going to happen because it's yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. We'll see
yeah.
if I make it there. But
UCF hates
I
Bailey.
thought like last year was on a Thursday. Last year was on a Thursday, and I was like, but it's their first game as a Big 12 team. Like I got to go to that, and so I made a weekend out of it. And then this time it's like, do I want to put all this effort into going there for a game against New Hampshire when like I'm already going to be making that trip several other times in the fall. Like if I skip New Hampshire, I might like go to another game that I might not have otherwise gone to. Like last year, I missed. No, I guess I just missed Villanova and Houston last year, and Houston one wasn't like a
Yeah.
I'm not going because I don't feel like it.
I'll tell you right now. I think that if you listen to this, you probably know that I'm a go to the games purist. I have only ever missed games for very serious things, like like when I had COVID in 2021 for 2 games, and that was frustrating. But like even off, I don't know if I ever got into it on the podcast to you, but I was really upset with you for not going to the Villanova game this year, and was like
Yeah,
chastising you via text for 2 weeks leading up to that game because I thought it was ridiculous. So that all being said,
I'm really glad I didn't go.
opening the season with New Hampshire and then Sam Houston sucks. Those are just
Yeah.
2 completely meaningless guys. We're gonna be 3 weeks into the season before they've played a real football game.
That's the thing. I'll say this right now. I'm not going to both of those games. So it's going to come down to which game I'm going to go to. And
I would go, if I were you, I would go to Sam Houston because at least it's an FBS team and at least it's on a Saturday.
that's fair. Yeah.
New Hampshire exists purely as a buy game to get
I'm
some
going to
home game
be
revenue, and that's it.
I'm saying this on January 10th. So like when we get into the summer and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for football. Like I'm going to be like, oh, it's the first game I got to go. Like I have to go. And then
Okay. Well, I'll just say then
I
my
don't
evil
know.
plan here was to try to convince you that Sam Houston's the one you have to go to because I know you won't miss the opener. So if I convince you you're going to Sam Houston, you'll also go to New Hampshire, and then I'll just have you at both.
Now I'm going to be petty and not go to the season opener. All right, let's get into the rest of the football news. Quite a bit to get through. UCF analyst Bobby Bentley took the head coaching job at Battleground Academy in Tennessee, which I believe is a
Awesome
private school,
name.
Battleground Academy.
Really? You don't
Awesome.
think that's a public school?
Academy.
Battleground
Let's
Academy?
just say the name Academy. It's a private school. I remember I looked at it and something about the school was unique to me. I don't remember what it was, so I guess it wasn't that unique.
Why do public schools have stupid names? Have you ever noticed that? Like it's always
named after like a historical figure, right?
It's an old my school wasn't.
Oh, yours wasn't. I don't.
Yeah. It's
Wasn't
always
thinking of
named
yours.
after
I was thinking of mine.
It's always every public school that you've ever heard of is named after, well, that's I've already thought of exceptions, so it's not totally true, but the vast majority of them are either
ever heard of.
The vast majority are either named after some random old person or like a really indescript natural thing, like River Falls High School or something. And those are the only two types that exist. That's it.
Yeah. No, mine was like, because that's the thing, I don't know who I went to. Actually, not all the schools. My middle school and high school. This is dumb that we're getting into this. My middle school and high school, I don't know who the person was that my school was named after.
The name of my middle school was an idea, which I feel like is really stupid. Can I say that there's nothing? Kind of.
Yeah,
yeah. Like
I didn't say mine because you seemed like you didn't want to say yours, and I was like, is there a reason that I'm not thinking of to not say?
I don't know. Like
school?
I generally don't like. We don't share a ton of personal information on the podcast, but I don't know if it matters that people know what school I went to. Yeah,
I don't know if they matter what school I went to 12 years ago.
I went to Discovery Middle School. That was the name of my middle school.
Mine was John. I was Coleman Middle School. It was John A. Coleman. Do you know who that is?
No,
I don't either. And what about T.R. Robinson?
I just know the name because I know you went to Robinson, but I don't know who they are.
I don't know who T.R. Robinson is. Yeah, I never knew. I don't bother to look it up either.
We have it right
looked
here.
It up at some point, but
your high school was old person's name, and mine was random thing. Mine was Timber Creek. So it's just that's it. Those are the two types of high schools. And our rival was East River. Like we just had the stupidest names for high schools.
Ours was HB Plant. Like that's a person.
HB Plant. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That sounds like someone who's on the wrong side of the Civil War. Like that's all I'm saying.
Well, let's not get into that.
Probably have to cut that. Who was HB Plant?
No, I don't know.
Well, in case I'm like slandering,
I'll get through the rest of
I'll look it up.
The rest of the news. John Heisler announced his retirement on Wednesday. Big guy. He'd been in college communications for 50 years, I think they said. What was it? Earlier this year, not earlier this year, last year, I was watching the Catholics versus Convicts 30 for 30, and he just popped up, and I was like, that's John Heisler.
Yeah, because did you ever finish that, by the way? I think you got halfway through it and then just stopped.
I don't know.
It's like my favorite 30 for 30, and then after an hour, you're like, I'm going to bed.
No, I mean, I was watching at like 1 a.m., and I was like, I have to be up for work in like 5 hours. So, but yeah. So
I don't think I ever told you, but because that's my favorite 30 for 30. And you told me you were watching it, and I was like, God, I really miss watching that. So like when you were 20 minutes in, I just also started it because I was like, I haven't watched it in a while. And then I watched the whole thing that night. But yeah.
Yeah. So let me talk about the UCS 2024 season opener. Tyler Grable accepted an invitation to the Shrine Bowl, and Alec Holler accepted an invitation to the Tropical Bowl. I don't think I knew that was a thing, unless I probably say that every year. I'd see a Tropical Bowl thing. I'm like, the Tropical Bowl. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Javon Baker entered the NFL draft, as did DeCorian Patterson. And then the last thing here today was announced that Lee Davis was hired as UCS assistant athletics director with the title of like football executive ops and recruiting. What'd you find? Oh no,
I was right.
You were wrong.
Because he was a railroad baron type guy, and it was because he had built a reputation for providing reliable and efficient express service. The cabinet of Confederate President Jefferson Davis made Plant's company the agent for the Confederacy in collecting tariffs and transferring funds during the Civil War. Okay.
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. The thing that does surprise me, I'm pretty sure there's an HB Plant like museum in Tampa.
Like, a museum, like a big thing. Like for him?
I don't know if it's for him. I've never been there. It's over by UT. I really don't know, but this has been probably the most chaotic news section we've ever been to. This is what happens when you're engaged in the news, Christian. When you just sit there and don't listen, then
I'm sorry. I didn't think when we started this podcast, I didn't think I'd be bringing up the Civil War. Here we are.
It's good. All right, now it's time for the bonus listener questions. For those of you that stuck around through all that, we've got 3 questions we're gonna kind of go through here, a little rapid fire. We will start with MD Knight 2016. Would you trade 2 years of 5-7 UCF football seasons for 2 years of back-to-back Sweet 16 or better UCF men's basketball seasons? It means, but they can't win the national championship. I guess that's the caveat.
Like their journey ends in the Sweet 16. It's 2 Sweet 16
or better. Like they could go to the Final Four or Elite Eight, but they don't win the national championship. It says obviously this excludes MBB from winning a title in either year, as that would clearly be a trade.
And then I texted, my response was, I wouldn't even trade it for a title. Like I cannot mentally handle 2 straight losing seasons of UCF football, especially with where the program is right now. Ask me again in the 2030s, maybe things have been going good for a while and I'm willing to like sit with some not good football. No, there's nothing men's basketball could accomplish that would make me make that trade.
I'd say no to the question, but with the caveat, if you told me that men's basketball is going to win the national championship, I'd probably make the trade. I'd regret it during football season, but if they won the national title, maybe I'd do that.
No, nope.
But that's just what I mean. UCF
think
football
about
is
think
everything
about
to UCF.
everything we know with UCF football right now, and think about if they went 5-7 next year and what that would be like for you. And then think if they did it again in 2025.
The reason that I entertained this for a second was I was like, it was really frustrating, but they just went 6-7 this year, so it's like it's not that different. I'd do it again.
If I can store this and then activate it whenever I want, maybe it would happen down the road. But I'm not doing it now.
Okay. Let's get to the question from Zach, UCF Zach at I think it's Zeebles UCF. It says Christian has his uniforms, little uniforms, but if
Such
Bailey
a
had
condescending way to say it, Christian has his little uniforms.
He didn't say little, to be fair. He just said he has his uniform.
It's in the tone.
But if Bailey had to pick one football adjacent thing to be very passionate about, what would it be? This is possible selections. Concession stand selections. What are you trying to say? Field maintenance, DJ song choice, media breaks, and halftime coordination, other. I didn't put a lot of thought into this. My first initial thing was I do kind of like field designs. Like I've talked about for years how I wanted them to have black end zones, and then it was like no one actually can't do that, and they did it. Stuff like that. I don't know. I like cool end zones. Midfield things, little logos on the 25-yard lines. That stuff's cool. But I don't think I could ever get into like a your level with uniforms. I don't think I could do that with. I don't know if I could do that with anything football related. Like I love football,
just anything
like,
period in the world.
I like uniforms too. Like I'm not on your level of loving uniforms, but I do like I think you've probably influenced me on that because I
text you nonstop.
Yeah, and so I'm like, all right, I kind of have to think about them more because you just text me any thought you have about uniforms. But
I will, and I don't even really we're at the point where I don't even fully expect replies on all of them, and I don't even get them. I'll just kind of like shoot you a thought, just so it's out there. Like I'll occasionally just send you a photo, like I'll be going through like UCF photos, and I'm like, I like this. Send it to you.
What did I tell you the other day? You were like, you sent me a random picture from like I think it was the Kansas State game. You're like, this is a great combo. I was like, are you just at the point in your day where you're just scrolling through your album of UCF uniforms? I think that's exactly what you were doing. So
that was why I saw it. I have an album on my phone with 386 photos of UCF's uniforms from the last 2 seasons, and like whenever I'm bored or I need a break from work, I just scroll through it. But I think about this with uniforms too. I know I'm ruining rapid fire, but like when you're watching a football game and a play happens or whatever, and it's between plays and they do the shot where they zoom in on a player.
Yeah.
I'm always like, what are other people looking at during that? Are they not like taking in the uniform? Like what's that for?
Their phone. In between plays, everyone's looking at their phones. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. Because that's like what I live for during broadcasts is when they zoom in and I get to look at the uniform.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the last question comes from Randy, who we met in Cincinnati. So shout out to Randy. I don't know. This is like on a similar level as the Disney IP question we answered last time. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Where would nitro fall on the chart? And there's a sandwich alignment chart here. It says, please individually align yourselves utilizing the attached chart and show your work to receive full credit. Extra credit will be awarded to whoever answers with more passion. I don't have any passion about this. I have to look at the alignment chart again to even remember what I was even going to say. Do you have this feels like something you'd be opinionated about.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his chart because it's literally, there's 9 different options of where you stand on what you think is a sandwich. And I think first off, one of the options is radical sandwich anarchy. And that's if you think a Pop-Tart is a sandwich, which if you think that, I have to have a conversation with you. I think I'm a structural neutral ingredient purist. I believe that something like a BLT is a sandwich. I believe that something like a sub is a sandwich. There is stuff on here that is not a sandwich. A hot dog's not a sandwich. A burrito is not a sandwich. An ice cream taco is sure as hell not a sandwich.
That's the original question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, a hot dog is not a sandwich. Right?
Okay.
Wait.
No, I don't think I never really thought of it as a sandwich.
Here's the thing, because when
I know this has been like a long running thing, and I've never really weighed in on it, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't care.
When people say that it is, they say it's meat in between bread, and that's what a sandwich is. And you're entirely right, but also if you went anywhere in this country or in the world, and we're holding a hot dog, or someone's holding a hot dog, and you walked up to them and said, "Hey, can I have a bite of your sandwich?" They would look at you like you're a lunatic. I'm sorry.
Really good point.
It meets all the criteria, but it's not.
That's a really good point. What'd you say? Structural neutral?
Yeah. Wait, no. Wait. I lost the list. Sorry. No, that's correct. Yeah, I'm a structural neutral
But
because
are
a
you an
sub is a
ingredient?
sandwich.
Are you an ingredient purist or are you a ingredient rebel?
Uh,
Are you an ingredient purist or ingredient rebel or a true neutral?
I
I
don't.
don't. This is insane. I don't think
I'm
about
looking
this,
around.
which is
Okay, one of these is a chip buddy. What is a chip buddy?
uh shoot, I don't know. Never seen that in my life. What is that?
I don't know. Okay,
That
really
says
quickly, I'm gonna
structural
look it up.
purist,
Really quick, I'm gonna
ingredient
look it up.
neutral.
A
Just to
chip
be
buddy
different.
or a chip barm is it's just bread with French fries in between. Yeah, it's two buns of bread with French fries in between.
You know what?
I'd call that a sandwich.
Oh, shoot, I don't know. I think I'm this there's flaws in this chart
There are.
because I wanted to say I was a structural purist ingredient rebel because this ice cream between waffles, I think that's like an ice cream sandwich. Like I think that counts as a sandwich.
That's not a
And
sandwich.
then it's not a sandwich? Why is it not a sandwich? It's an ice cream sandwich.
We apologize to the listeners. We're now having
It's an ice
Bailey
cream
freeze
sandwich,
up a
is it
little
not?
bit, which is
Yeah.
making things fun.
Because the podcast is going longer because we're talking about ice cream sandwiches.
The
We should
internet
just
is trying
go.
to make us stop. Like the
Yeah.
internet's like, we've had enough of this. I don't know.
So
I
are
just
all of our
it's not a
listeners.
sandwich.
It is though. It's an ice cream sandwich. But then the next one is like a sub. Like I think a
Okay,
sub is a sandwich.
Bailey, that photo
What?
is not a goddamn ice cream sandwich. That is ice cream between two pieces of waffles. That is not an ice cream sandwich.
It's a take on an ice cream sandwich.
It's not okay. A take on a sandwich isn't a sandwich. You can call a hot dog a take on a sandwich. It's not a
I
sandwich.
don't know if you could.
Oh my. Okay.
So I was going to be somewhere in between structural purist and ingredient rebel with, and then also because then the next thing is structural neutral ingredient purist is a sub a sandwich. Like yeah, I think a sub is a sandwich. Is it not?
Yeah,
I
sub is
don't know.
absolutely a sandwich. Yeah.
So then maybe I'm that. I don't know, but I'm not an ingredient purist. Who cares?
I'll
Let's
tell you
get out
right
of
now
here.
that if you think a burrito's a sandwich, you need help.
No, it's not. No, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Insane. But
Okay.
anyway, that was fun.
I don't know. We answered the original question. Where would nitro fall on the list? I
I don't
don't even know
understand
where
what
that
that
comes into
means.
play.
Like as a mascot, I'm confused. I don't know.
I think it was just to get UCF in there. I don't know. Nitro's a rebel. He's chaos. Yeah. All right, let's get out of here before our
All
internet
right.
freezes again and we get banned from the internet for that conversation. This was fun. We'll be
Very
back
fun.
next week with episode 188. Keep sending in your 5-star reviews and your 5-star review questions. We'll get to some more next week. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at Bailey J Adams 22, at by CA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.